21 secret surgeries that changed Golden Age stars forever. The glitz. The glamour. The flawless faces that lit up the silver screen. In the Golden Age of Hollywood, perfection wasn't just expected, it was manufactured. But behind the dazzling smiles and iconic cheekbones were whispered secrets, hidden scars, and silent recoveries. What if the beauty we idolized was more surgical than natural? Hollywood didn't just create stars, it carved them. Behind studio doors, under strict secrecy, some of the most famous faces of the era underwent hush-hush procedures that forever altered their appearance. From barely noticeable tweaks to dramatic transformations, these were not just cosmetic changes, they were reinventions. In this countdown, we're unveiling 21 secret surgeries that redefined the legends of the Golden Era. And once you know the truth, those familiar faces may never look the same again. Get ready to see classic Hollywood in a whole new light, one where beauty had a price, and perfection came with a scalpel. Audrey Hepburn. Audrey Hepburn, the smile that was almost never hers. We begin our countdown with the face of timeless beauty, Audrey Hepburn. With her delicate features, graceful poise, and that unforgettable smile, she seemed to embody effortless elegance. But as perfect as she looked on screen in Roman Holiday or Breakfast at Tiffany's, not everything was as natural as it seemed. Before Audrey became a global icon, Hollywood quietly stepped in. Just before landing her breakout role, studio executives at Paramount arranged for subtle dental procedures to refine her slightly crooked teeth. It wasn't about vanity, it was about perfection, the kind Hollywood demanded from its rising stars. A few careful adjustments from studio dental surgeons, and suddenly, that radiant, flawless smile was born, crafted not by nature alone, but with a touch of calculated precision. At first, Audrey resisted. She worried the changes might alter her authentic charm. But eventually, she was convinced, these small corrections wouldn't take away her essence, they would highlight it. And they did. What makes her story stand out is this. Unlike many of her peers who were reshaped and reinvented under the knife, Audrey remained largely untouched. Her beauty was real, but refined. Her dental work was so subtle, so masterfully done, that it simply enhanced what the world was already falling in love with. Audrey Hepburn's story reminds us that even the most natural stars often had just a bit of help in becoming Hollywood's gold standard of beauty. James Dean. James Dean, the rebel with a manufactured smile. He was the smoldering bad boy who defined a generation. James Dean, the brooding face of 1950s rebellion. On screen, he radiated effortless cool, a symbol of raw emotion and nonconformity. But behind that iconic smirk was a young man quietly haunted by insecurity, especially about his smile. Long before Rebel Without a Cause made him immortal, Dean stood in front of a mirror, worried that his crooked, discolored teeth didn't measure up to Hollywood standards. Determined to fit the mold, studio dentists went to work. Veneers were sculpted, his grin reshaped, transformed from uncertain to unforgettable. It wasn't just a cosmetic fix, it was a psychological shift. The new teeth gave Dean a confidence he'd never known before, allowing him to fully embody the defiant persona that fans fell in love with. But even in this transformation, Dean remained conflicted. Records from Warner Brothers show he was impatient during the weeks-long procedure, repeatedly asking if the results looked too fake, too Hollywood. One technician recalled how obsessed Dean was with keeping his edge, fearing that a perfect smile might betray the raw masculinity he was known for. In the end, the poster child for youthful authenticity was wearing a carefully engineered illusion. His rebellion was real, but so was the artifice behind it. Dean's flawless grin became both his armor and his contradiction, the Hollywood rebel whose most iconic feature was built in a dentist's chair. Gloria Swanson. Gloria Swanson, the original face of Hollywood's obsession with youth. Long before plastic surgery became a red carpet ritual, silent screen legend Gloria Swanson was already rewriting the rules of beauty and survival in Hollywood. In the late 1920s, as the golden age of silent films faded and the rise of talkies threatened to silence her stardom, Swanson made a bold, secretive choice. She went under the knife. Determined not to be cast aside like so many aging actresses of her time, she became one of the first major stars to undergo facial surgery, opting for early facelifts and eye procedures at a time when such interventions were unthinkable. Her first facelift, done in Paris in 1928 by a surgeon who once treated disfigured soldiers of World War I, was rudimentary, painful, and deeply risky. The recovery left her hidden from the world for nearly 2 months. masked as a shopping trip through Europe to fool the press. But what truly set Swanson apart wasn't just her fame or fortune, it was her fierce refusal to fade away quietly. In an industry that devoured youth and discarded women with every passing year, Swanson dared to take control of her image. She didn't just pioneer cosmetic surgery, she challenged the very system that told women they were finished after 30. And in doing so, she carved out a legacy that went far deeper than skin. Kirk Douglas. Kirk Douglas, the chin that built a legend. With his chiseled jawline and unforgettable dimpled chin, Kirk Douglas carved out an image of rugged masculinity that became a Hollywood trademark. But what most fans never knew was that the iconic cleft, so central to his smoldering screen presence, wasn't entirely nature's gift. In the mid-1940s, as Douglas shifted from stage to screen, studio executives saw something special. Raw charisma that just needed a little polish. So, in a quiet move behind the curtain of fame, Douglas underwent a subtle cosmetic procedure, a pioneering chin enhancement designed not to transform, but to intensify what was already there. A tiny implant defined the cleft, sharpening his already striking features and cementing his place as a cinematic titan. From Spartacus to Champion, that chin wasn't just part of his face, it was part of his myth. So convincing was the look that almost no one questioned its origin. It became so iconic, even his son Michael Douglas would later be compared to it, turning a surgical touch-up into a generational signature. Years later, when asked about the famous dimple, Kirk simply smiled and said, "I've always had it." Technically true, but behind that grin was a carefully crafted secret, one that helped shape a Hollywood legend. Betty Grable. Betty Grable, the million-dollar legs that came at a price. During World War II, no image captured the hearts of American troops quite like Betty Grable's iconic pin-up pose. Her legs, famously insured for $1 million, became the stuff of legend. But behind the glamorous sheen and studio hype lay a story far more painful than the public ever knew. To keep those legs flawless under the unforgiving eye of the camera, Grable endured a series of grueling beauty treatments and early surgical procedures, long before such things were common in Hollywood. These included primitive forms of liposuction, skin tightening, and rigorous massage therapies administered by a European body sculptor hired specifically to preserve her perfect silhouette. 20th Century Fox spared no expense. They scheduled routine appointments, pushed cutting-edge cosmetic enhancements, and guarded the secrets of her leg maintenance like classified war intel. After all, those legs weren't just admired, they were profitable. Her 1943 swimsuit poster became the most requested pin-up of the war, with over 5 million copies distributed worldwide. Yet for Grable, the cost was more than monetary. The pain, the pressure, the constant upkeep, it was a price she quietly paid while the world adored an illusion. The million-dollar legs may have been a PR dream, but behind every polished pose was a woman shaped as much by sacrifice as by studio ambition. Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando, before the legend, there was the nose. Long before he became the brooding icon who redefined what it meant to act, Marlon Brando was just another striking young face trying to find his place in Hollywood. With smoldering eyes and undeniable presence, there was only one feature that seemed to bother him, a nose he thought was too wide for the screen. Quietly, in 1949, Brando opted for a subtle rhinoplasty, not to become prettier, but to fine-tune the face he believed the camera couldn't quite love yet. Unlike the dramatic overhauls often pushed by studios, Brando's request was precise. Narrow the nose, but keep its character. "I don't want to look like a pretty boy," he told the surgeon. "I just want people to see more than my nose." The change was delicate, just enough to sharpen his already intense gaze and highlight that famously strong jawline. It worked. Soon after, A Streetcar Named Desire made him a household name, and a new kind of leading man was born. What's most ironic is that Brando would later go on to reject the very beauty-obsessed system he once quietly played into. His nose job wasn't vanity, it was strategy. A small concession to Hollywood's image machine that helped launch a career built on raw truth and rebellion. It was the kind of compromise even legends had to make before they could break all the rules. Ava Gardner. Ava Gardner, the price she paid for perfection. With her smoldering eyes and unforgettable features, Ava Gardner became one of Hollywood's most hypnotic screen goddesses. But behind that mesmerizing beauty was a hidden world of pain, physical pain, endured for the sake of studio-crafted stardom. Before she dazzled audiences as MGM's ultimate femme fatale, Ava's transformation was both meticulous and merciless. Her natural hairline, deemed too low and soft for the silver screen, was dramatically reshaped through electrolysis, an excruciating process that burned each individual hair follicle with electric current. The same brutal procedure that Rita Hayworth once suffered through. For 6 relentless months, Ava sat through weekly sessions so painful that she sometimes fainted. More than once, she arrived at the studio with tears in her eyes, trying to smile through the agony. But it didn't stop there. The studio demanded more than beauty. They wanted perfection. Subtle facial contouring was used to sharpen her cheekbones and carve the exotic allure that would define her career. It was all orchestrated under the watchful eye of MGM's tyrannical head, Louis B. Mayer, who upon seeing her first screen test declared, "Fix that forehead." A makeup artist who worked closely with Ava later said, "She'd try to laugh it off and say, 'In Hollywood, beauty and torture go hand in hand.' But we could see it was breaking her." In an era where fame demanded sacrifice, Ava Gardner gave more than most. Her story is a haunting reminder that behind the glamour of old Hollywood was a cruel reality, where pain was just part of the makeup. Humphrey Bogart. Humphrey Bogart, the lisp that made him a legend. That unforgettable voice, the cool, gritty drawl that made Humphrey Bogart a Hollywood icon, wasn't entirely natural. Long before he became the hardened hero of Casablanca and the Maltese Falcon, Bogart struggled with a mild lisp, a flaw that nearly ended his shot at stardom before it began. Leading men were supposed to be flawless. Bogart wasn't. Desperate to salvage his rising career, he underwent extensive dental surgery between 1935 and 1937, procedures that reshaped not just his smile, but his destiny. The surgeries didn't erase his speech quirk, they refined it, molding his voice into that slightly lisping, razor-cool tone that became his trademark. According to records, Bogart received partial dentures and had several teeth reshaped to adjust how his tongue moved during speech. Warner Brothers believed in him, but only if he changed. Studio boss Jack Warner reportedly gave him an ultimatum: fix the teeth, fix the lisp, or find another line of work. So Bogart endured the pain, not just physically, but emotionally too. In the end, what once threatened to be his downfall became one of his greatest assets. His voice, raw, imperfect, unforgettable, gave his tough guy roles a human edge. In classic Hollywood, flaws weren't always erased. Sometimes they were reinvented and made legendary. Sophia Loren. Sophia Loren, the smoldering Italian enigma. With her hypnotic gaze and timeless elegance, Sophia Loren seemed to be the very definition of natural beauty. But behind the flawless screen presence was a quiet decision to perfect what was already breathtaking. In the early 1950s, before she became an international sensation, Loren underwent subtle cosmetic enhancements, not to change herself, but to ensure that the camera captured the magic she radiated in person. Unlike the dramatic overhauls that many stars endured, Sophia's tweaks were delicate, almost invisible. A slight lift around the eyes gave her that signature almond shape, while a gentle sculpting of her cheekbones brought even more focus to her striking face. These enhancements were carried out in Rome, arranged by Carlo Ponti, the man who would eventually become her husband, after a cameraman remarked that her beauty, though undeniable, didn't fully translate on film. The procedure, called a lateral canthopexy, refined the outer corners of her eyes, sharpening their exotic allure. Her surgeon later described it not as a transformation, but a celebration of her natural gifts, just enough to turn a beautiful woman into a cinematic icon. What made Loren's choice so powerful was how intentional and understated it was. She wasn't chasing perfection, she was amplifying her essence. While others were pressured into radical changes by studio executives, Sophia made practical, almost surgical decisions about her career. According to her longtime makeup artist, she treated these enhancements as part of her craft, a fine-tuning of the instrument that would one day captivate the world. And captivate, she did, smoldering, unforgettable, and entirely her own creation. Dean Martin. Dean Martin, the reinvention behind the charm. Before he was the smooth, tuxedo-clad icon known for his effortless charm and martini-sipping swagger, Dean Martin was Dino Crocetti, a rough-around-the-edges son of Italian immigrants with dreams bigger than his small-town beginnings. But Hollywood has a way of shaping stars not just with scripts, but with scalpels. In the late 1940s, during the height of his comedy partnership with Jerry Lewis, Martin underwent a quiet yet pivotal transformation, a rhinoplasty that would redefine more than just his nose. His original features, broader, more rugged, didn't align with the romantic leading man image Paramount was trying to craft. Studio executives believed his ethnic look might limit his appeal, so they urged the surgery as part of a full reinvention. Martin hesitated. Deep down, he feared losing something more personal than his profile, his identity. "They're trying to make me look less Italian," he reportedly confided in Lewis. "Next, they'll want me to change my name again." But fame demands sacrifice, and ultimately, Dean saw the surgery as a ticket to the big leagues. By the time the bandages came off, a star was reborn. The rhinoplasty softened his features, sharpening his allure and elevating him to the epitome of mid-century cool. Most audiences never questioned his movie star looks. And just like that, Dino became Dean, the polished crooner, the suave heartthrob, and the living embodiment of old Hollywood sophistication. Greta Garbo. Greta Garbo, the woman who turned mystery into an art form. Before the world knew her as the ethereal Swedish screen goddess, Garbo was just another hopeful with a soft, round face and dreams bigger than the Hollywood hills. But behind her transformation into an icon was a carefully orchestrated reinvention, one shaped not only by talent, but by scalpel, pressure, and perfectionism. When she first arrived in Tinseltown in the mid-1920s, MGM executives were intrigued by her soulful eyes but saw something they considered a flaw. Her face wasn't sharp enough, dramatic enough for the silver screen. And so, the transformation began. Subtle but strategic facial contouring sculpted her cheeks and jaw. Early weight modification procedures, including what some believe was a primitive form of bariatric intervention, helped her shed the softness and emerge with a striking silhouette that would mesmerize millions. Studio head Louis B. Mayer wasn't interested in potential. He demanded results. He ordered a full makeover, dental adjustments to perfect her smile, surgical tweaks to define her bone structure, and an iron grip over her diet and body image. It wasn't just about beauty, it was about marketability. Garbo's appearance became a brand, a mystery wrapped in angles and shadow, carefully designed to captivate. Her haunting elegance wasn't an accident. It was manufactured, manipulated, and maintained. Greta Garbo didn't just rise to fame, she was sculpted into it. Her story reveals a chilling truth. In old Hollywood, studios didn't just polish stars, they carved them from clay, creating legends one scalpel stroke at a time. Cary Grant. Cary Grant, the secret behind the ageless charm. As we break into the top 10, we arrive at Hollywood's eternal gentleman, Cary Grant, the very embodiment of timeless elegance. To the public, he seemed untouched by age, his charm and good looks defying the years. But behind that polished image was a carefully guarded secret. In an era when male vanity was taboo and plastic surgery for men nearly unheard of, Grant quietly underwent a discreet facelift in his late 40s. The year was 1952. As he neared his 50th birthday, Grant felt the weight of time pressing against a career built on youthful allure. Determined to preserve his leading man looks, he slipped away to a secluded Swiss clinic under the alias Alexander Archibald, a clever nod to his birth name, Archibald Leach. For 3 weeks, he vanished from Hollywood's spotlight, with insiders whispering he was simply vacationing in Europe. But this wasn't just cosmetic maintenance, it was precision artistry. The surgeon focused on subtle refinement, lifting the jawline and smoothing the neck, enhancing, not erasing. There was no frozen expression or obvious tightening, only a polished preservation of what nature had already perfected. What makes Grant's story so intriguing isn't just the surgery, it's the silence that surrounded it. While women in Hollywood were expected to chase youth at any cost, men like Grant had to pretend theirs came effortlessly. That double standard forced him to hide what kept him camera-ready well into his later years. Cary Grant didn't just master the art of acting. He mastered the illusion of eternal youth, and did it all behind a curtain of secrecy. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford, the price of beauty in old Hollywood. Joan Crawford wasn't just a star, she was a force, a face you couldn't forget. But that unforgettable look didn't come easy. Behind the sharp cheekbones and striking silhouette was a painful truth. Crawford's iconic facial structure was partly the result of grueling dental procedures that would make even the bravest flinch. In the late 1920s, as she transformed from a carefree flapper to a serious dramatic actress, MGM pushed for a new image, one that meant removing several of her back molars. Yes, you read that right. Healthy teeth were deliberately pulled, one by one, not for medical reasons, but to hollow her cheeks and enhance her bone structure. The result? A dramatic, angular look that became her trademark. These extractions weren't done with modern anesthesia. The pain was intense. But Crawford never flinched. According to her longtime makeup artist, she saw each procedure as a necessary sacrifice. She considered physical pain a reasonable investment in her future, he once said. Crawford endured it all in silence, swelling, bleeding, days of agony, because she believed in paying any price for success. In an industry that built up stars just to tear them down, Joan was determined to make her image unforgettable. And she did, one pulled tooth at a time. Gable. Clark Gable, the King's secret smile. Behind the rugged charm and commanding presence of Clark Gable, the man who stole hearts in Gone with the Wind, was a secret that could have shattered his carefully crafted image of masculinity. By his mid-30s, Gable's mouth was in crisis. Years of poor dental hygiene and relentless smoking had ravaged his teeth, leaving him with advanced periodontal disease, decay, and major tooth loss. MGM, eager to mold him into Hollywood's ultimate leading man, stepped in with a radical solution: complete dental reconstruction. In a move cloaked in absolute secrecy, all of Gable's remaining teeth were pulled, and full dentures were created from scratch. The process was long, painful, and humiliating, but entirely hidden from the public eye. His transformation began in 1932, right after his breakout role in Red Dust. Studio dental records reveal the full extent of the damage, and the extreme makeover that followed. Rather than try to salvage what little remained, MGM's top dental team opted for full extraction. Temporary dentures kept his smile camera ready during filming, while permanent ones were meticulously crafted to enhance his masculine allure. The final dentures were a work of art, slightly larger than natural to magnify his iconic grin, and strategically designed to exude power and confidence. But they weren't without cost. Gable endured constant discomfort and even had to relearn how to speak and perform with them in place. Still, the alternative, showing his real, ruined teeth, was unthinkable. It would have destroyed the myth of Hollywood's most desirable man. Clark Gable's story is a stark reminder of just how far the studio system would go to build legends, and how much pain some stars had to endure to keep the fantasy alive. Judy Garland. Judy Garland, the smile that hurt to wear. Long before she followed the yellow brick road, Judy Garland was already trapped in a far more twisted reality, one where Hollywood demanded perfection at any cost. At just 14, the beloved star of The Wizard of Oz was subjected to one of MGM's cruelest beauty mandates: painful dental alterations to fix a smile that didn't need fixing. Studio dentists fitted her with removable caps, uncomfortable, artificial shells that reshaped her teeth but brought constant pain. She wore them while filming, even while singing, enduring silent agony just to look camera-ready. These procedures weren't about health. Garland's natural teeth were slightly uneven, nothing that warranted such drastic measures. But MGM wasn't interested in natural. They wanted flawless. Instead of using age-appropriate orthodontics, they chose a shortcut that prioritized image over well-being. And Judy had no say. She was a child, manipulated, prodded, and reshaped without consent. This was just one piece of the larger machine that devoured her innocence. Forced diets, weight checks, pills to stay awake, pills to fall asleep, and endless scrutiny. What happened to her teeth was symbolic of something deeper. Hollywood didn't just want Judy Garland to shine. They wanted to mold her into something she never chose to be. And the cost? A lifetime of physical pain, emotional trauma, and a legacy as one of Hollywood's most tragic stars. Burt Lancaster. Burt Lancaster, the smile that built a legend. Before he lit up the silver screen with that iconic grin, Burt Lancaster had anything but a Hollywood smile. Behind his rugged charm and athletic build were uneven, damaged teeth, remnants of a life spent as a circus acrobat and military man. It didn't match the image the studios wanted, and they knew it. So, in 1946, just before his explosive debut in The Killers, the transformation began. Studio dentists worked wonders, performing extensive dental reconstruction using bridges, early veneers, and bonding techniques that were cutting-edge for their time. Unlike others who opted for full dentures, Lancaster's procedures were carefully chosen to preserve his natural strength while crafting a smile that could command the camera. The results were stunning. Not only did his teeth become flawlessly white and symmetrical, perfect for the harsh contrast of black and white film, but his entire presence shifted. In screen tests taken before and after the dental work, Lancaster seemed like two different men. The shy, tight-lipped performer was gone. In his place stood a confident, magnetic figure whose smile became a signature part of his screen persona, especially in classics like From Here to Eternity. Burt Lancaster's story is more than a tale of cosmetic enhancement. It's a powerful reminder of how Hollywood shaped its stars from the inside out, crafting icons one detail at a time. His dazzling smile wasn't just dental work. It was the spark that launched a Hollywood legend. Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor, a smile as legendary as her eyes. As we enter the top 5 of our countdown, we arrive at none other than Elizabeth Taylor, an icon of beauty whose face lit up the silver screen like no other. Known worldwide for her mesmerizing violet eyes and that rare double row of eyelashes, there's one element of her signature look that often goes unnoticed: her dazzling, meticulously crafted smile. Long before she became a Hollywood legend, young Elizabeth was already in the hands of MGM's most trusted stylists. Around 1944, at just 12 years old, she began undergoing a series of discreet dental enhancements, not to reinvent her, but to refine the natural beauty she already possessed. Her slightly uneven childhood teeth were gradually reshaped using early orthodontics and delicate cosmetic bonding. It was a far cry from the painful, heavy-handed treatments inflicted on other stars of the era, like Judy Garland. For Elizabeth, it was gentle, precise, and thoughtful. Studio dentists worked over several years, focusing especially on her front teeth to ensure her smile would grow with her, seamlessly transitioning from child actress to one of Hollywood's most stunning leading ladies. The goal wasn't to change her, it was to perfect the image without losing the magic. What makes Taylor's transformation remarkable is the subtlety. Unlike others who were dramatically altered to fit Hollywood's mold, her signature look remained intact. Her beauty wasn't manufactured, it was polished, enhanced, and elevated with care. In the end, Elizabeth Taylor didn't just meet the industry's high standards, she redefined them, one luminous smile at a time. John Wayne. John Wayne, the hidden battle behind the cowboy grit. John Wayne, Hollywood's ultimate tough guy, the embodiment of American grit and frontier masculinity, was hiding a truth that clashed with everything his image stood for. Beneath the weathered charm and iron-jawed swagger was a man quietly fighting time itself. As the cameras rolled and fans worshipped his rugged looks, Wayne was secretly undergoing cosmetic surgeries, facelifts and eyelid procedures, to preserve the image the world demanded. In the 1950s and 60s, when men, especially icons like Wayne, were expected to age like oak trees, strong, stoic, untouched, he took a different path. Disguised as innocent fishing trips or hunting getaways, these so-called escapes were actually recovery periods from hush-hush procedures. His first facelift came in 1953, targeting his jawline and neck, subtle but crucial areas where age threatened to dull the sharpness of his screen presence. The results were impressive, giving Wayne back that firm, commanding look without ever revealing the work behind it. By the early 1960s, he quietly underwent blepharoplasty, eyelid surgery, to lift the weary heaviness that had begun to creep over his eyes on camera. Each operation was precisely timed between film shoots, orchestrated with military-like precision to avoid suspicion. What makes John Wayne's story so compelling isn't just the procedures, it's the secrecy, the lengths he and the studio went to preserve an illusion. In a town where women were expected to chase eternal youth, Wayne's need to do the same was a taboo, proof that even Hollywood's most indestructible men weren't immune to the pressures of perfection. His hidden journey exposes a deep double standard in Tinseltown. When women fight aging, it's expected. When men do it, it's a secret worth protecting at all costs. John Wayne may have conquered the Wild West on screen, but behind the scenes, his greatest battle was against time, and he fought it with a scalpel and silence. Gary Cooper. Gary Cooper, the handsome star who quietly changed his face for fame. Before he became a Hollywood legend, Gary Cooper, tall, graceful, and impossibly charismatic, harbored a quiet insecurity that the studios couldn't ignore. His ears. Though blessed with a rugged, all-American charm, Cooper's slightly protruding ears were seen as a flaw, something that might distract audiences during those all-important close-up shots. In an era when perfection was crafted, not born, even a minor imperfection could stall a career. So, in the late 1920s, as Cooper was rising from bit parts to leading man status, Paramount arranged a secret solution: ear-pinning surgery, or otoplasty. The procedure was subtle but transformative, gently pulling his ears closer to his head and refining the clean, iconic profile that would become unforgettable in classics like High Noon. The operation was performed by a surgeon who had gained expertise repairing the faces of wounded soldiers, now applying those same skills to Hollywood's rising stars. Cooper's recovery was swift, and within weeks he was back in front of the camera, carefully filmed while he healed. It was a quiet fix, never publicly discussed, but one that spoke volumes about the brutal beauty standards of the studio system. Even someone as striking as Gary Cooper wasn't immune to Hollywood's obsession with flawlessness. His story is a reminder: behind the silver screen glow, even legends were reshaped to fit the dream. Rita Hayworth. Rita Hayworth was born Margarita Carmen Cancino, a name that echoed her rich Hispanic heritage. But to become a star in 1940s Hollywood, that identity had to be erased. What followed was one of the most brutal and heartbreaking transformations in film history. At the hands of studio executives hungry for a marketable leading lady, young Margarita was subjected to a grueling 18-month process of electrolysis. Week after week, inch by inch, her natural hairline was burned away. The goal? To Americanize her face. There was no anesthesia, no relief, just searing pain as her forehead was reshaped to fit a fantasy that excluded anything ethnic. Each session felt like her skin was being scorched off, slowly, deliberately, unforgivingly. But Hollywood didn't care about the pain. It only cared about the image. So her dark, flowing hair was dyed a bright auburn. Her olive-toned skin lightened. Her name, Margarita Cancino, was discarded for something palatable, something white: Rita Hayworth. She endured this silent torture not because she wanted to, but because the system left her no choice. Staying true to herself meant being forever cast as the exotic side character. Erasing herself was the price of becoming a star. In the end, Rita Hayworth became the face of Golden Age glamour, but at a cost so high, it still echoes through Hollywood's shameful history of whitewashing and erasure. Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn Monroe, the most dramatic transformation in Hollywood history. Before she became the blonde bombshell who redefined beauty for an entire generation, Marilyn Monroe was just Norma Jean Baker, a sweet, shy girl with big dreams and an ordinary face. But Hollywood doesn't make legends out of ordinary. What followed was one of the most iconic and carefully concealed reinventions in showbiz history. In the early 1950s, as Marilyn's modeling career gave way to serious acting ambitions, talent agent Johnny Hyde saw more than potential. He saw a future star. And he didn't just manage her career. He financed her transformation. Under the hands of a discreet Hollywood surgeon, Norma Jean underwent procedures that would alter not just her face, but the course of pop culture itself. A delicate chin implant softened her square jaw into the heart-shaped face we now associate with classic Hollywood glamour. A subtle nose job refined her profile into the perfect silhouette, the one that would grace magazine covers, movie posters, and millions of bedroom walls. Her recovery was kept in total secrecy. The studios didn't want the public to see the sculpting behind the star. The transformation was more than physical, it was myth-making. Add platinum blonde hair, signature red lips, that unforgettable beauty mark, and the world didn't see Norma Jean anymore. They saw Marilyn Monroe, fantasy incarnate, sex symbol, living legend. But behind the sparkle and stardom was a sobering truth. Marilyn wasn't alone. Hollywood's golden age was built on illusions, and behind every flawless face was a hidden story of pain, pressure, and reinvention. Judy Garland was fitted with painful dental devices as a child. Rita Hayworth underwent electrolysis to erase her natural hairline, and with it, traces of her Latina heritage. Clark Gable wore dentures but never told a soul, even his closest friends, terrified it would shatter his image of rugged masculinity. These stars were not just playing roles on screen, they were asked to become them off-screen too. Their bodies sculpted, smiles engineered, identities rewritten. And with every change came a deeper fracture between who they were and who the world wanted them to be. Marilyn once said, "I'm trying to find myself. Sometimes that's not easy." Knowing what we know now, her words strike like a quiet scream. Because the woman the world fell in love with was, in many ways, never real to begin with. Their transformations became the gold standard for future stars. Monroe's chin, Hayworth's forehead, Gable's teeth. These weren't just cosmetic changes, they were blueprints. They set expectations so impossibly high that even the stars themselves couldn't live up to them. And yet, in a strange way, these painful metamorphoses also marked the beginning of a larger conversation. one we're still having today. A conversation about beauty, identity, and who gets to decide what's ideal. So as we close today's journey through Hollywood's most closely guarded surgical secrets, we're left with a deeper understanding, not just of what these stars endured, but of how their sacrifices helped shape our modern perceptions of beauty. From Audrey Hepburn's subtle dental fixes to Monroe's total facial reconstruction, these changes weren't just about vanity, they were about survival in a world that demanded perfection. If you found this glimpse behind the curtain of Hollywood's golden era fascinating, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more untold stories of old Hollywood. And let us know in the comments, which transformation shocked you the most? Did knowing these secrets change the way you view your favorite classic stars? We'll see you in the next video, where we continue peeling back the layers of fame, fantasy, and the real human beings hidden beneath the spotlight.